Hello and welcome to this session in which we'll discuss the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct. During the previous session, we established why accountants and auditors as professionals are held to higher standards. And simply put, the reason is they serve the public at large. Therefore, we do need a professional code of conduct for accountant and auditors. Now, in the US, we have two bodies that set auditing standards. We have the AICPA that set auditing standards for private companies. Then we have the PCAOB also set auditing standards. Also, we will eventually review the PCAOB professional conduct. Now, the AICPA and the PCAOB are very similar, and by nature they should be similar. Why? Because prior to the PCAOB, we only had the AICPA. So the PCAOB came after AICPA, and what they did, they adopted most of the AICPA auditing standard, professional conduct. Therefore, you're going to see there are many similarities and few differences we will discuss later. In this session specifically, we will focus on the content, which is the structure of the code, and discuss the principle. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, FarhatLectures.com. Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses, broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today. How is the code structured? The code consists basically of three levels. We have the principles, which are general rules. Then we have rules, which is the second level, which are more specific rules. Then we have the interpretation for the rules, which is more specific than the rules, which is it interpret the rules. And if you cannot find the answers, you could always submit your request, email, call, submit the request to the Professional Ethics Executive Committee if your question is not answered based on the principles, rules, and interpretation. Now let's take a look at the organization of the AICPA code. How is it organized? Well, there are basically four sections. The first one is the preface, and this section is called Part 0. And the preface applies to all members, regardless, all members, whether they are in public accounting, private accounting, they're not practicing, it means they're retirees, they're working in nonprofit, they're educators. The preface applies to all. And in the preface, we have 6 principles. And in this session, we will discuss those 6 principles. Then we have Part 1. Part 1 applies to members in public practice, which is simply put in CPA firms, they are called MIPPS or MIPS. So in case you saw this term in your CPA review course. And under Part 1, we're going to cover the conceptual framework rules and interpretation. This is Part 1. Part 2, it applies to members in business. Who are these people? These are CPAs in the corporate world. You're a CPA, but you work for a private company. They're called MIBS, MIBS. Again, we have conceptual framework and interpretation. Then Part 3 apply to other members, OMs, other members who are not in public accounting. They don't work for a CPA firm. They don't work in the private industry. Once again, educators like myself working in nonprofit organization, as well as others. Here we have rules and interpretation. Assuming you are both in MIPS and MIBS, which rules should apply? You would always look at the MIPPS, members in public practice, because member in public practice, they follow strict application of the rules. Therefore, let's assume you are an internal auditor and you have a private accounting firm on the side. Well, you should always follow the members in public practice rules because it's going to hold you to a higher standards. The 6 principles of the Professional Code of Conduct are responsibilities, the public interests, integrity, objectivity and independence, due care, and scope and nature of services. If you know anything about Farhat Lectures, once I have a list of items, what do? I'm going to go over the items separately, starting with responsibilities. What do we mean by responsibilities? Well, simply put, when we are performing our professional duties, members should demonstrate careful professional and ethical judgment throughout all their actions. Now, just before I proceed, remember, those principles applies to all, whether you are in private practice or you are not even a member, either private or practice, you're just other member. It applies to all. Now, in certain circumstances, there's special rules, but I will emphasize them when that needed. But responsibilities, when you're performing your professional duties, members should demonstrate careful professional and ethical judgment throughout all their actions. This is, you have to be responsible for the public. This is what we're saying. You have to maintain public confidence in your action. Act with integrity. Do the right thing. And you should know what the right thing is. Act with proficiency. Don't do anything that you don't know how to do or you're not comfortable with. You could always ask an expert. You have responsibilities to clients and employers. If you have clients, it means this is your own clients. And if you work for a company in the private sector, you have to use your independent professional judgment. You can accept the decisions of others. That's fine. It's not only you use your judgment as long as it's not illegal or violate public interests. Also, you have responsibilities to the profession and your colleagues. You have to protect the integrity of the profession. How do you do so? Well, by acting with integrity, by maintaining public confidence. Practice self-governance. In other words, self-discipline yourself. You don't need someone to be looking over your shoulders. Enhance your education. This is your responsibility to the profession. Contribute to the profession. Maybe conduct some research. The public interest, that's the second principle. Members are required to embrace the responsibility of conducting themselves in a manner that prioritize the welfare of the public. And this is what we mean by the public interest. Why? Because you are serving the public, especially as an auditor. You have to uphold public confidence. Otherwise, the whole profession will lose its credibility. You have to show dedication, that you are maintaining professional standards. You have to demonstrate commitment to professionalism in all your action. You should not benefit yourself or appear to be benefiting yourself at the expense of the public. Don't discredit the profession in any way because you are serving the public. You have to maintain integrity and high ethical standard. You cannot lose the public confidence. And the public is everybody else. The most difficult thing about protecting the public interest is you don't know the public interest. These people are unknown to the CPA. So that's why you have to keep that in mind. You have to keep them in mind. Integrity. What's integrity? Well, always doing the right thing. You have to uphold and enhance public trust. Members are expected to carry their professional duties with unwavering integrity. Am I doing the right thing? Always ask yourself, am I really doing the right thing? If this information is released to the public, am I proud of what I did? Or am I going to be ashamed? This is what doing the right thing is. If people know about this, am I going to be ashamed of this? Am I doing what a person with integrity should do? Don't subordinate your judgment. Don't subordinate your integrity. Always be ethical, no matter what. Objectivity and independence. Members are required to uphold objectivity and avoid conflict of interest. Avoiding conflict of interest means staying independent while you are completing your work, fulfilling your professional obligation. Now, members in public practice, which the MIPS, they must ensure that they are independent in both in fact and in appearance. In fact means they are actually independent. And in appearance, they look like they are independent. They cannot look like they are friendly or the client is doing them any favors. Also in appearance, that's not acceptable. And we're going to talk more about independence in one whole session. It's a very important topic when delivering especially auditing and other attestation services. Now, you cannot have any interest in the client or you cannot have any adverse interest. In other words, not a positive interest, because now you're, as an auditor, you look like you are working for their interest. You're not supposed to do that. And you cannot have an adverse interest. You cannot have any adverse means you cannot have any issue with them in a sense that there's a litigation going on or some sort of an adverse interest, conflict of interest. You can't. You're supposed to be totally independent. No need to be independent when you are performing tax, consulting, and compilation because you are not issuing a report to the public. Also, CPA working as internal auditor for a company can own its own stock. For example, if you're an internal auditor, you're a CPA for a private company, let's assume PepsiCo or Apple Computers or Walmart, that's fine. You can own their stocks. You don't lose your independence because you are working for the company as an internal auditor, although you're a CPA. What is objectivity? Objectivity means you are impartial. You are not favoring anyone in your decision. You have intellectual honesty. You are truly doing what you're supposed to do, following the rules and the regulation, and you have no conflict of interest as well, which is, again, being independent. Do care. Members are expected to adhere to the technical and ethical standard of the profession, consistently seek enhancement of competence and service quality, and fulfill professional duties to the best of your capabilities. Now, perfection here is not required. What we're saying here is you need to do your work based on the technical and ethical standard, and you need to know what you are doing. And if you don't, enhance your capabilities through continuous professional education, through training. Your competencies are important. If you can't do it, hire a consultant. Consult with someone. Conduct your own research. Also, when you're conducting an audit, plan properly for the engagement. Supervise the staff. Know your stuff. Know what you are doing. Don't act with negligence. And this is what due care is. Scope and nature of services. A member engaged in public practice must adhere to the principles outlined in the Code of Professional Conduct when deciding on the extent and the type of services. In other words, don't provide a service that you're not capable of delivering. Not capable because you don't have the expertise in it or you don't have the proper resources. Again, you could always consult, hire outside service to help, but you want to make sure you're aware of this. You know the most about any conflict of interest and your capabilities. You don't need to ask someone about this. You should know. Each individual know what they cannot do. Well, sometimes you misjudge yourself, but usually we know. Now, is the AICPA Professional Code of Conduct the only thing you should look at to keep up your ethics? Not at all. You could look at the SEC Commission Ethical Standard, the PCAOB. You could look at Government Accountability Office, Department of Labor, various tax and authority. That's gonna supplement this code. So you see, if there's no answer in this, you just say, okay, good, I'm good to go. I'm gonna make up my own rules. Look for reference in other sources. So what we did in this session, we looked over the preface, which is the principles that applies to all members. What I mean by all members, whether you are in public practice, in private, or other members. You are retiree, nonprofit, or education. Let's take a look at a multiple choice questions from Farhat lectures. For which of the following services does the CPA Code of Professional Conduct require members to be independent? Well, do you have to be independent to prepare a tax return? And the answer is no. When you prepare a tax return, you follow IRS rules and you prepare the return based on that. And you want to look for your client for any possible savings within the law that you can generate. So you don't have to be independent. You have to work for your client to save as much on their tax bill as long as it is legal to do so. So A is out. Management services. If the client asks you to help with management services, do you need to be independent? Not at all. If they're asking you for help, management services, they're asking you to run the company for them or to help you run their company. You cannot be independent. You have to be an advocate of the client. You have to work for them. Therefore, you don't have to be independent if you are providing management services. And let's go from management to consulting services. Consulting services are basically similar to management services. They're asking for your opinion, and they're going to take a look at your opinion and most likely accept your opinion. That's why they're asking you for their opinion, how to run the company. Consulting services. They're consulting with you. Do you have to be independent? And the answer is no. So by the process of elimination, C is the answer. When you are providing an attestation engagement. Now, why is that important? Why do you have to be independent when you are providing an attestation engagement? And for attestation engagement, for now, if you don't know what this is, let's assume, let's say it's an audit, but it's other than audit. It could be audit, it could be a review, It could be other attestation engagement. When you perform an attestation engagement, you are issuing an opinion. And this opinion might be used by third parties, parties who are relying on your opinion. And when that's the case, you are not dealing with the client. Yes, the client might be hiring you and actually paying you, but your opinion is going to a third party. Therefore, for your opinion to carry any weight, it has to be independent. Therefore, you have to be independent. You cannot have any interest in the client. Therefore, you have to be independent. And as a result, C is the correct answer. You should go to Farhat lectures and look at additional MCQs, true-false questions. That's going to help you what? Understand these concepts better. Whether you are a CPA exam candidate or an accounting student, invest in yourself. Good luck, study hard, and of course, stay safe.